Okay, here we are.
Here we are back. We're going to talk about something new. What are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about thread.
Thread. I got a question. When we first opened the shop, have we always carried Aurifil thread?
No.
Who made the decision what kind of thread, and who made the decision that we weren't going to carry just Aurifil for our main thread?
Well, it's been a growth.
Mm-hmm.
We started out. We had Robison Anton, and we had Gutermann.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've got any Gutermann in here. We had Gutermann,
Mm-hmm.
and at the time, those were the threads to have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those were fairly popular in the market because it's been 15 years ago practically that we opened.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we carried. And Robison Anton was a poly...
I carried Robinson Anton all cotton
right
in my store.
And they do make all cotton.
Mm-hmm.
And we had that. And it didn't move very quickly.
Because it's an unknown name. I think they're not as known in the States as they are in other countries.
Right. It just didn't go. It just didn't go.
And the spool is weird looking.
It is weird. I've got a
and
whole...
I think that's another reason why is because
you notice I have this nice collection of Robison Anton because it went on clearance and I bought it all.
Okay.
Well, I didn't buy it all because
And
we
have
had
you used any of it?
You know what I use it on is
What?
my serger.
Oh yeah.
I really like it for my serger.
Here's some Robinson Anton.
Yeah,
But
that's
see how
probably the
weird the
rayon.
spool looks?
That's the
I didn't
rayon.
bring any.
It is a weird spool, and it doesn't fit nicely on your sewing
here's
machine.
the cotton one.
It doesn't fit nice on your sewing machine.
Right.
And I just think it wasn't known. It's not a bad thread by any means.
It's not. It's
I
not.
like
It was a good thread.
It's a good thread. It's just it wasn't familiar to our consumer, and we moved out of it.
Well, the reason I chose it at my store was because it was an uncommon thread. That was one thing that, because they couldn't get it at Joann's.
Right.
It was a high quality thread.
Still
but
is.
I think it was the spool that scared them because of that big fat end.
That's a good point. Yeah, it doesn't sit well on your sewing machine. But for sergers, oh my gosh, I love this for sergers because serger thread typically comes, black, white, and beige.
What I liked about it was that you could take this in and you could pop it, and then you could secure your end.
Yeah. See, I got this whole box.
I love that
full.
in a spool.
I do too.
And so, see, your thread, you can put it in a box, and your thread doesn't go everywhere.
See, this
I
whole
do that
box
on
is
my.
full.
I do that on my Aurifil.
You can do that on Aurifil.
But
I do it on my bobbins
we're
too.
We're going to show
I
you.
do it on my
I'll
bobbins.
show you how to find the thread on Aurifil. But yeah.
Hey
so,
Dawn, I'm gonna have to hit you up for a couple of those.
Oh,
If you have a bunch at home
I
and
do.
cream.
I have tons of them at home.
Yeah. So anyway, we moved out of Robison Anton because of those issues. We moved out of Gutermann because Aurifil when we opened wasn't a big deal, but then it has developed.
So Gutermann was your everyday in the
everyday.
sew machine thread, was your cotton thread.
It was, and it did okay. I liked Gutermann thread. I don't dislike Gutermann thread, but we felt like Aurifil had a little better quality.
A lot of sew machines don't like Gutermann thread.
They don't, and a lot of sewing machines may not like Aurifil thread.
I have a sew machine at home that doesn't like Aurifil thread.
Well, there you go. So
it uses metal.
right here, this is Gutermann right here, but this is hand stitching. So this isn't machines. This is
How do you know
quilting.
that's hand stitching? How do you
well,
know
it's quilting.
Oh, it says quilting.
and you can see the thread is like ginormous. It's fat, and
Thicker.
thick. So yeah, that's how come as a store we moved into Aurifil, and Aurifil offered us so many choices. So many different and nice display, and it became popular in the industry. And I think Aurifil right now is one of the better threads you can get. I mean,
What
my
about
personal opinion.
price?
Well, that's the key. So when you look at a spool of Aurifil thread, and this is 1,400. Now, I have all my Aurifil thread in colors.
Me
you know,
too.
I'm
Me
all. You and I would be the same.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, 1,300 meters, which is like 1,440 yards. I think I'm saying that right. Anyway, it's a lot of thread. The point is, when you factor out the per yard price of the Aurifil, it's inexpensive, especially when you buy it like this.
Yeah,
now,
you can't take a Robinson Anton and say, well, this one's $5 and this one's $10. This one might have double the thread or triple the thread than this one. You gotta, when you're figuring the thread,
or this.
Yeah, when you're figuring the thread, you've got to figure the thread by the yard.
Look how
or meter or
hollow
whatever.
that hole is in
Yeah.
there. How much of that is not thread, and look how much of that is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, when you're comparing thread, a spool of thread, check the yardage.
Right.
Because it's not the same. You're absolutely right. And you may not even buy the same thread. This is the other thing you get into. It's like this, which says all purpose, and it's a mercerized cotton covered poly. It doesn't tell me the weight of it.
Well, it probably was on this label that came off. I hate
Might
when
have
they
been.
do that.
I do too.
I hate when they do that.
Here's a dual duty XP. Same thing. It may have no weight on it. No weight.
See.
And I want, that says fine on the other side, but it doesn't actually give me a number weight.
Uh-huh.
I don't see a number weight. I want to know.
It's in this article number. It's a 40 weight.
That's not the color?
No, the color is over here.
So article S940.
40. I think this is a 40 weight.
It
feels
looks like about a 40 weight.
Mhm.
But I'm going to buy a thread that I can look at the spool and I can know what weight I'm working with.
Right.
Because it's huge. It's huge. When you're doing, like I make a lot of handbags, and when I'm using handbags, I don't want to use a 50 or 60 weight thread. I want a 40 weight thread. I want something with a little more to it.
Okay, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Getting ahead of ourselves. Okay.
We were talking about brands.
Brands
Of different kinds of threads. Now, one of the most
Here's Wonderfil.
Wonderfil.
Here's Cosmo, which is kind of a.
Let me find my
Cosmo was by Lysine, which is a Japanese company.
Masterpiece is a brand.
Right.
Percentia.
Madeira. Here's Madeira thread.
Cosmos.
Yep, there's Cosmos. We got our Cosmos.
Metler.
Metler is another one. Yeah.
Maxi Lock.
There's my Maxi Lock.
Star Thread. Do you remember Star Thread from the 1,000 years ago? Oh my gosh, when Tammy opened her shop, this is the kind of thread we carried. It's 100% cotton. It was a good thread at the time. It's by Coates and Clark, but it was what do I want to say? It was for the quilter.
Quilter. But again, look at the spool on your sewing machine.
Yeah, look at that.
You'd have to put it on Bobbins.
we used to have to carry these little wooden spools that would fit inside here, so they would fit on our sewing machine spool.
And a lot of your sewing machines come with adapters for these now, which is
Isn't that
nice.
funny? Yeah.
They do.
But anyway, Coates and Clark, look how dusty it is. It's been in my
been
case,
around a
but
while.
it's been around a while.
So yeah, lots of brands, lots of choices.
Lots of brands.
But in our store, we sell Aurifil. Now we have
well, it's
Superior,
silly to sell
we've got-
100 different brands.
You can't get as many color choices.
Right.
So rather than be shallow in 2 or 3 brands, we went deep in one brand. And now we have all 250 colors of Aurifil in 50 weight. We've got a lot of the 40 weights. We have the cones. You know, we've got if it's an Aurifil product, we pretty well have it. And we did that intentionally so that we were deep in something. So when you come in and you need just this shade of pink, we have the entire color works that you can choose that. So yeah, and you know, at some point,
Not to say if somebody wanted to, let's say somebody wanted some dual duty carpet thread or something special. If you wanted to buy 5 or 6 spools, however many it comes, we'd probably be happy to order that for you.
well, and we do, yeah, here's, I went and pulled these off of our sales floor. So here I have some Gutermann upholstery weight thread. Of course, the Aurifil cones. We have, I think this is the invisible thread.
I have a whole case of invisible.
See, hold your hand out. See,
Yeah.
the invisible thread. No. But this is what they call invisible thread.
Or something filament.
Now, yeah, monofilament.
Monofilament. Thank
This
you.
is Night Glow. This is
glow in the dark.
Isn't that fun? Isn't that fun? This says Vanish Lite. It's made by Superior. Again,
More
now this is a
monofilament.
water-soluble thread.
Oh, water soluble.
Don't make a bathing suit.
Don't. That'd be terrible.
Bad choice for
Bad
bathing
choice.
suits. But if you're wanting to stitch something in place and you don't want it to be there permanently, this is kind of a fun
Don't
little
make
choice.
underwear out of it.
No
either.
underwear. No underwear. And honestly, making a quilt in this and then they wash it. Oh,
that's not
it's
good
very sad.
either.
But water soluble thread is a thing. It
Yeah.
exists. So yeah, we do have other like little bits of options.
Okay.
And we do carry those things.
I
but,
wondered about that.
But primarily we're like all in with Aurifil.
Okay.
But-
So when I go to buy thread and I've decided what brand I like,
Yes.
okay, what's the next thing I look for?
You're gonna look at this. We always look at color. I mean,
Well, yeah.
But let's talk about color in a minute. Let's first talk about ply and weight and what kind of thread it is. So there's cotton thread, there's polyester thread. Okay, I'm going to talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
There's cotton thread, there's polyester thread, there's rayon, there's metallics, there's, silk. Oh yeah, silk and linen were kind of the thread for a long time.
Right.
And then sewing machines came out and they were like, we need cotton thread. And they came out with some mechanical equipment in the mid-1800s that allowed them to make cotton thread, which they hadn't had before.
This is linen thread.
There you go, linen. And that was the thread for centuries. That was it. And look how thick it is.
Well, it comes in different weights, but that's just one I had.
Yeah, it does now, but I mean, they couldn't ply and twist thread tiny like we can do now because of the mechanics of it.
Right.
So this was your thread forever, and now they can do it nice and fine. And when I'm talking about twist, I have yarn here. This is my splaining yarn. When I'm talking about twist and ply,
Explain it to me.
splain it, and you know this, but if you look at, see how that. And I have a piece of yarn because it's big enough you can see. See the little twists? See when I turn it how it changes the twist? The exact same thing is going on a microscopic level on your piece of cotton. They've taken 2 or 3 strands depending on the type of thread you use. See, here's 2. This happens to be 3-ply. And
so when you look
twisted
on
it.
the end of your thread, it should tell you the ply.
It should tell you the ply.
And if it doesn't, then that's a sad situation because then you don't know.
Because you don't know. Now, it'll say like a 240 or it'll say like a 310.
Right. This one says 4-2.
So that's
40-2. So that means it's 2-ply.
It's 2-ply and it's 40. So a 2-ply thread is not going to be quite as strong in some ways as a 3-ply thread, but it's still going to...
Depending on some other factors.
Depending on all these little details that are so complex, we don't have that much time.
But a 2-ply thread is not going to be as thick as a 3-ply thread, right?
Exactly. So yeah, just look at this piece I'm holding in my hand right here. That has 3 plies. If I took one of those out, used the same thread and only used 2, it'd be thinner. I mean, it's just logic. Then this is, and I'm using this as an example of this is twisted fairly tightly. So it's going to have a nice smooth, see how it stays nice and smooth? So that would be in the thread world what we would call a good thread. But this that is not been twisted well, that is fuzzy and fluffy when I pull on it, now I'm doing this on a yarn scale, that's not a good quality thread.
Right.
So
the twist is important.
Twist is important, ply is important, and how they've treated the thread. And there's a thing called mercerized thread that kind of came out later. That's where they actually pass the thread through a little flame and burn the fuzzies off.
Right.
And then they dip it down in acid and clean the fuzzies off even more. So thread now is just clean.
Right.
And that's one of the things you can tell if you're using a good quality thread, your sewing machine won't gunk up. Your sewing machine won't have all that blech, because
That dirty fuzz.
that dirty fuzz. And if you're using a lesser quality thread, you're going to clean your machine.
A lot of people think that fuzz in your bobbin area is from the fabric.
No,
it's
the
not
thread.
all from the fabric.
Not all of it.
If you sewed with white fabric and black thread, all that little dust would be black.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be white.
Your
from
thread. Yeah, you're right. I think you're absolutely right. The thread is the issue. So lots and lots and lots of thread choices. Buy the best you can afford.
Yeah, that's right.
Buy the best you can
Well, that's
afford.
it. Don't you think that's the rule for every piece of equipment that
Yeah.
you have for sewing?
I
or any hobby, really.
buy the best you can afford. And I've seen people who use very low quality products and make amazing things. So it's not always, biggest and best is not always what's going to make it outstanding, but certainly it's going to help you.
Tammy uses any thread she can get her hold.
Really?
Hands on, whatever color. She works for Moda, can have the best thread
Yeah.
that she wants.
Hello?
She'll use garage self thread.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well then let's have that discussion.
We'll be having that discussion with
okay,
Tammy.
so
I never thought about going to garage sale to get my sewing thread.
Stop. Okay, so I have to bring this. This sits in the store and has for, since we opened. This happens to belong to me, and in it is the garage sale
Oh,
thread.
there's some thread in there I can use.
No.
I got a nickel.
Okay, Dawn, tell them why you don't use this
Oh
thread.
my
got
gosh,
a
dry
nickel.
rot. We're talking about dry rot here. We are talking about thread that would break just from looking at
Yeah.
it.
So I brought this spool just because. So this is a spool of thread. I bought an old treadle machine in a barn. Don't want us to trip over that. that had been sitting in a barn, and look at this thread. Quilting extra strong, 250 yards, 29 cents.
Isn't that funny? I love it.
Cute.
Wooden spool, of course.
Wooden spool, Belding Corticelli. Have you got one like it?
Oh, I've got all kinds here.
Yeah. So this thread, which is fairly thick, just breaks at the.
Look. You
Yeah.
can just break it.
That's another
It's
way to
nasty.
test your thread.
It's
is
nasty.
Pick it up and pull on it. See what it does. If it breaks just at.
With no effort.
And this thread, I just keep this on the shelf just because I think it's cute. But this thread, don't use it to make your quilts.
No.
Oh my gosh. Tammy needs a
I
finger
know.
shaking.
See how I can't hardly even get that? I mean, I had a lot of effort to snap that.
If your thread breaks at just, you look at it and it breaks, it's not good. Because I'm going to say this, it's going to sound really stupid. Your thread holds your project together. Now that's stupid. To hear me say that out loud, I'm like, well, duh. But think about it. If all the thread you used was this quality of thread, and and we wash it and it falls apart, and I've spent how many hours,
Right.
and then it just falls apart.
Nasty.
Bad
Yeah,
choice.
you don't want that. You don't want that.
Bad choice. Okay, so I think we've talked about the good quality versus the bad quality. Now let's talk about the kinds of thread.
Oh, yeah. Where do you want to start?
I like, you know me, I'm going to start with metallics.
Okay, right there they are.
Da, 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 da.
All different ones. What do you want to
Yeah,
say
well,
about them?
I mean, you got to use the right needle. Okay, let's talk a little bit about needle with metallics. It is metal.
It
right?
is metal.
Hence
Do
the
you
name.
do you ever want to put it through your sewing machine?
You can.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And would you put it in your bobbin and your top, or just your top, or just your bobbin, or
Okay.
what would you do?
Different thoughts on that. I like to use a lingerie weight with a metal thread, just because
In your bobbin.
in my bobbin, which is going to be your 80 weight thread. Because first of all, the metallic thread is kind of expensive, and I don't want to fill a whole bobbin with metallic thread.
Right.
Now, if both sides are going to show, I'm obviously going to have to use the metallic thread. But and you might have to adjust your bobbin tension. You might even bypass your bobbin tension altogether to get it to work right. And it is a little trick to get that tension just so. But so the answer is sometimes. Don't you think?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a sometimes question. I think
is.
sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
And each machine is going to react to metallic thread differently.
Yeah.
The one big suggestion I would give if you're going to use metallic thread on a spool in your sewing machine is to get you one of those little net covers.
Yep.
Do you
I
know
don't
what
have
I'm
any-
talking
I do,
about?
and
I didn't bring
I didn't
one.
bring one either.
Do we have them here in the store? I bet we do.
We do.
I should have brought one. But it's a little net, sort of like you buy your peaches in, you know, at the grocery
pears,
store,
yeah.
pears. Those spongy, open up nylon
Yeah.
sleeves.
And they're not going to be able to see this, but here's why. When you put this thread on, it just
It
tends
just
to
falls.
fall. Here, this one will do it.
Yeah.
This one. Now this one's a flat metallic. This isn't even round. This is flat metallic, which is an adventure. But as it sits on the machine, it
Yeah, it
pulls.
just wants to just fall off the spool. And this helps keep the tension a little bit better, these sleeves do.
Yeah, they do. They do.
So-
They keep it from wandering everywhere.
Right.
But yeah, this metallic thread, it really is. It's like running a little piece of metal through your needle. So you
Now,
want to
does
use
metallic
titanium.
thread have weight? I mean, does it come in different weights?
Oh, I'm sure it does.
It does. Look at this. This is one single thread.
Gee,
And
is
I
it
don't
so?
know. Well,
Now I know they
it's
make
metallic.
what's called 100 weight.
But then look at this. This has
That's
3
thick.
ply. Look, it's 3 ply.
Well, yeah. Look
Metallic.
at this. Where's this?
See,
one
that's
from?
not even wound very good because look, it just falls apart. Just comes apart.
Right. I've got
So
this.
doesn't
open.
mean that this is a bad thread because metallics is a whole
Well,
different
look at this
ballgame.
one. Put that one next to that. Look
Yeah,
how thick
look.
compared.
Look at how thin.
So you're going to have to work on your needle size and make sure your needle. And then titanium needles are generally friendly to metallic thread.
Uh-huh.
So I would suggest a titanium needle if you can get it in a big enough size to fit your metallic. But yeah, metallic threads
here's here's a thicker one. Now this is a metallic thread that has a cotton core with the metallic wrapped around it.
Yeah, you're not going to use this for pieces. You're going to use this for decorative
You're not
stitches.
going to use this to hold your pieces to make your quilt blocks
No,
with.
no. This
is a specialty thread.
This is when you're done and you're going to decorate it and make it pretty.
Uh-huh.
That's what we want to use these threads for.
So we just wanted to just tell you that it was out there, it's available, and there's a zillion choices.
Oh, gosh.
Just in metallic threads.
But and play with them. Yeah, don't be afraid of them.
Right.
I mean, people are like, "Oh, metallic thread," but I think they're fun.
Right.
I
I've
like
never
to play with
used mine in my machine. I've always just done handwork.
them. No, I like them.
Okay.
I think they're fun. See, even this one, it says in the metallic. Look how pretty that. Would that be pretty on a stocking?
Yeah.
You see a lot of times people use these in embroidery machines. You know.
Yeah, see, I don't do any of that. All my embroidery is done by hand, so
Yeah. I'm
that's
with you.
the reason.
Okay, so that's metallics. We talked
That's
about
metallics.
Then let's talk about variegated.
Okay.
You got some variegated
Oh,
in there?
do
Are
I?
they ever fun?
Do I?
So variegated threads, again, are not all created equal.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a dyeing process they have to go to. If you really want to take the time, kind of like pooling with yarn, you can figure out a good dyed thread will have a repeat that is consistent. And if you figure it out right, you can actually make a design with it. So that's like pooling with yarn. That's a whole nother level.
This is a subtle,
Mm-hmm.
a very subtle,
obvious.
and that's just very dramatic.
Yeah.
See, these two are just very dramatic.
Yeah. So, and variegated threads are thread. I like them for quilt tops, for finishing quilt tops.
Do you?
I just think it's kind of a fun, especially if you got a quilt top with a lot of color and it's like, I don't know what color to use. Use a variegated.
Right.
And then you don't have to think about it. You know, that makes it fun.
Exactly.
And with the variegated thread, I typically use the same color in the bobbin, but here's the wackadoo part. It's never going to match.
Yeah. Right.
They're never going to match each other.
Right.
So that way the inconsistency is consistent. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you try to use the same brand of
Yes.
thread in your top as in your, unless it's like a specialty thread like metallic or something like that, but otherwise you like to use the same?
Well, and I don't know how you feel. Do you like to use the same color?
I do. I love
too.
Because I don't do any specialty things. I just piece. That's
Right.
all I do. I don't even quilt.
Yeah, and here's kind of the issue, and we have quilters come in all the time because we sell long arm machines. They're like, well, I want to use, and we do long arm finishing, and they'll come into our long arm lady and say, okay, the back is black and the top is white, so use black on the back and white on the top.
Because
Okay.
if your tension is not dead on,
Look
okay,
at my
you're
lip-
gonna. Oh, look at her with her little diagram.
Here's
love it.
my little diagram. So here's what happens when you use opposite color tension. So this is exaggerated again. So this is the bottom of my quilt where my bobbin thread is. This is the top of my quilt where the top thread is, and there's batting in between. And in a perfect world, these two stitches, here, Dawn, there, okay. These two stitches meet right in the middle and lock.
Oh, that would be a perfect world.
Oh my gosh, I'd be thrilled.
But that never
didn't happen.
happens, hardly ever.
This is what happens, and it's on top. And see, then I have a little dot on the top.
Yeah, this is the top of the fabric right here. So you would see a little dot of red.
Mm-hmm.
But now what if it's too loose? Oh, look at that. Now this is the bottom. So on the back of your quilt, you'd see a little dot of blue.
Now, I promise you, no matter how well your machine is set up, no matter how many times you've had it serviced by the most awesome technician there is, it's never always going to be this perfect.
Right.
We would like to think so.
And the more contrast you have in your thread, the worse it's going to be.
Right. So
if you had a white, and a cream, an off-white, like that, that's not going to be that big of a difference.
no, but you get them brighter.
But you get a lot of contrast.
So you know what? So now here's the naughty solution. If I have to do that for some reason in a little bit, I get a scripto marker.
Yeah.
And I go and I color those dots to match. In embroidery, they do that a lot.
Yeah.
On embroidery machines.
Yeah, I ain't doing that on a whole quilt.
I'm not doing that on a whole quilt. So you want your threads to match. And here's the other thing. When they dye thread, because threads all start out as one solid color, like usually a cream or a graze or a bay, whatever the color ends up being from what they're making it from, and they dye it. In the dyeing process, sometimes, like black thread will have a different tensile strength than white thread because of the way it's been dyed and treated. White thread has to be bleached, black thread has to be dyed. So you can have two different colors of thread, they won't have the same thread weight.
Right.
And that's another problem of this trying to get them to balance, Because you got this thing going on. See, here's my other picture.
Okay, good.
This is my other picture. It's like a tug of war where the thread on the bottom and the thread on the top have to equal, and when they don't, they pull it to the wrong side.
Yeah, they have to play well with each other.
They have to play nice, and it's a tug of war constantly between the two things. So this is my picture of how that works, and this really helps me. I look at this all the time because I'm like, okay, wait, it's on top.
Yeah.
Do I tighten? Which do I tighten? Which do I loosen?
Right.
So that helps with that with the thread. Okay, so that's thread tension and tensile strength and colors.
Okay, now let me ask you this. If you're working on a polyester
Yep.
fabric, what kind of thread should you use?
Well, that's what I like to use is I like to match the fiber with the thread.
Me too, hallelujah.
This
Okay.
is a fun little test because we figure out how we do things.
I know.
My opinion, again, and I've heard a lot of different ones, because when we were selling this Robus and Anton thread and it was polyester and people were like, well, I can't use polyester in my cotton quilt. Well, you can. There is some discussion that polyester thread will cut your fabric because it's cotton. It's not that much stronger than cotton that it's going to cut your fabric. What will cut the fabric is poor quality fabric, honestly.
Or a good pair of scissors.
Or a good pair of scissors. But I like to match my fibers because they're going to shrink at an equal rate. That's one of the reasons.
They're going to wear the same.
They're going to wear the same. Color matching is a little easier because it's the same product being dyed. So if I've got a pink quilt, chances are I'm going to find a pink thread that's close because they're both cotton. And I just, I'm not a big fan of polyester thread because it's not natural. That's just my opinion.
We're cotton lovers.
But I'm cotton lover. I'm a cotton queen.
If you were making a silk jacket, would you use silk thread?
Well, I'd probably. Gosh, it's expensive.
I know it is, but
silk thread is dang expensive.
it is.
And I don't it's strong though. Silk thread is so strong. I probably would invest in the silk thread if I'm
you're
making
going to
a silk
invest
jacket.
in a silk jacket,
I would.
I would go with silk thread. I am
My
a firm
heart beats
believer.
still.
I know my heart, but I am a firm believer of using the same. So if I'm doing a cotton quilt, okay,
Cotton piecing.
then I'm going to cotton piecing. I'm going to use cotton thread.
Cotton piecing, cotton top finishing thread, cotton.
Right.
Unless I'm going to do some specialty stuff.
Right.
Which chances I'm
On
going to do it
top
all over
or
the
fun,
quilt.
right?
But I agree. I think if you're going to do, and when I work in garments and I'm using rayon or things like that, I'm going to go to a poly or a rayon thread.
Right.
Just because it's going to have the same characteristics. Is that the right way to say that?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Now, serger thread.
Okay, I brought my serger thread.
Brought my serger thread. I know I got my
Usually you
serger.
need as many cones as you have spools.
And serger thread is what serger thread is. I think sometimes it's a cotton poly blend most of the time. To my knowledge, what do you think?
Yep.
Is that typically what
Yep.
it is? It's fuzzy.
This is 100% polyester. It's Maxi Lock, which is all I've ever used.
Yeah.
In my serger.
It's usually a little fuzzier. I don't think they take as much time to make it clean and pretty because serger thread you use so much,
It's usually a cheaper, but you're also using four spools, so it's four threads working together to kind of seal up an edge.
Right. And see, I've got navy, beige, black.
You can see how fuzzy it is.
It is. It's real fuzzy. Can you use it in a sewing machine?
I wouldn't. I would never use my serger thread in a sewing machine.
You're right. I wouldn't either. I absolutely would not. I have.
I haven't. I never have.
I have when it was like, oh, that's exactly the right color. And it wasn't something I cared about for eternity. But technically, you really shouldn't use it in a sewing machine. You're right.
Yeah, I'd be screaming if I was at your house and
I
saw
know
you do
you would.
that.
You would. I break the rules.
Yeah.
I'm the rule breaker. She's the rule follower.
Yeah.
So, yeah, serger thread's a whole nother critter.
Yeah.
When you see these big cones, that's what they're for. They're not designed to go. But show them your thread stand. Tell them about your thread stand.
Yeah. See, when this Robinson Anton came out, and then we started getting thread on the cone because we we love to economically
Cheap.
economically to buy them on the cones.
Look at this white.
Yeah,
Aurifil.
love.
Now it's $50 I think for that spool, but ding dong dang, it will last forever.
I have a black one, a white one, and a beige one, and a gray one.
Right.
Okay? and it just goes on my stand like this, like that. You bring it up, you thread it through this, and then you just thread it in your sewing machine just like normal, okay? And the reason that you would want to have it on a stand is because you don't want it flopping all over your table. Now, used to, before they made these nice stands, I just put it down in a coffee
I was
cup.
gonna say coffee mug works great.
Just a coffee mug, and it would just come. But since these came out with this little more tension to guide it through, it really does help.
You can put it through the handle of the coffee mug, though, didn't
Well,
you?
that's true. But we have them here, and they've even made them even more fun because now it's telescopic, so you don't have to travel with this big
cool.
clippity-cloppity thing here. You've got one that will adjust.
And you know what else these are good for is these metallic threads. And I know we're talking a teeny tiny little thing,
Mm-hmm.
but the metallic threads that come off, I don't know how I lose thread, but I lose it when
There's
I
a
look.
metallic
This
thread.
is metallic. Okay, so especially, but it's the tiny ones. It's the little sulky ones. Where's your little sulky one?
I don't know. Here.
The metallic sulky. Well, it's still not going to get my point across. When they're on a small spool and they're tightly twisted. There we go. This is a smaller spool. You can see how twisted that is. See how it's all twisty?
Mm-hmm.
If it comes through here and then goes through the sewing machine and goes all that distance, then that thread has had some chance to kind of untwist a little bit, and it makes it go in nicer and it doesn't irritate my machine as much.
Mm-hmm.
And it might make your machine like it better.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So, think about that.
Because just now look just like that, what
Yeah.
she just did. Look at how curly that is.
See how curly that part is here?
Uh-huh.
They may not be able to see
It's
it.
like when you cross stitch and you just keep going in and out and in and out and your thread starts twisting
Twisting.
and you have to drop it to let it untwist. It's exactly the same principle.
It is. And so that's why these thread stands, if you're using an embroidery machine and you're using a lot of metallic threads, these are great because they'll open that thread and give it the space to breathe. The other thing you can do is sometimes your sewing machine has a small spool cap and a large spool cap. Use the
Right.
larger one if you have
Right.
thread that's giving you trouble. It opens it up and gives it a chance to breathe. Because it's when it's been real tight around something, it
Yeah.
gives you trouble.
So we definitely always have a use for the the adjustable thread stand.
Yep, I
Love
like
it.
those. I
Love
like
it,
my
love
adjustable
it,
thread
love
stand. So then let's talk real quickly about, we didn't really talk about the weights of thread. Let's talk about thread weights.
Okay, before we get there, I
Okay.
just want to say that monofilament thread, which is see-through thread, what would you ever use that for?
Well, I know, I've not personally done it, but I know.
To go fishing.
To go fishing.
Mm-hmm.
My husband's fishing right now. No, there's a special way you can set up some of the machines, and you have to look in your manual how to do it, that it will make it look like a hand-stitched machine. Or
Yeah.
hand-stitched. You can do it by machine, but it looks like hand-stitched because of the way the thread comes up.
But don't a lot of people use it for like applique?
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
I've never
because-
done it.
Because like if you want a machine applique and you don't want to use a pretty stitch, but you just want to use a little zigzag bite.
Well, that's cool.
A lot of people use that for that. So it comes in smoky color. I know it looks black. It's not really black. It's a smoky color when it's actually on the fabric, and then it comes in the clear.
Now that one's fusible too.
Well, I didn't mean this one.
But
Have you ever
fusible
hand-
thread.
what I mean.
Have you ever hand bound a quilt with it?
No, you would never hand bind a quilt with it, you silly person.
And it's like fishing line though. I
It
will tell
is
you,
like skinny little baby,
and it's
tiny,
hard to
weeny, teeny.
thread.
Oh, slippery. Well, it's nylon. What can you say?
right.
Yeah, and then this is fusible. They use that a lot for art when you're sewing over a bunch of stuff, and then you want to
Wash
press
it
it. No, fuse it.
Oh, fuse it.
And then
fuse
you
it.
wanna
I'm thinking wash
fuse it
away.
down.
I'm
You
thinking of my
wanna fuse it
swimsuit
down.
fabric. My
Yes, you
swimsuit
are.
fabric again. Here was my metallic thread. Yeah, see this one. This is the one that
Okay, I
really
don't know
gets
why
tangled.
that's- Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about thread weight.
Yeah, let's talk about thread
What's that
weight
number
because
mean? What's that 40, 50,
well, what do
80?
all the numbers mean? Let's just pick up an Aurifil, just a plain.
Here's a
plain Aurifil. Yeah, pick up one of these, and talk to us about what all those numbers mean, please.
all right.
Because, and pick out one that you haven't opened yet. This one's been opened because you want to show them how to open it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Take it all the way through. Okay.
Now this is just Aurifil, okay? We're
Yeah.
talking Aurifil right now.
So when you get a package of Aurifil, what's nice, I do like that they're sealed.
I love that they're sealed, not dusty.
Mm-mm. And I have all the little carry cases to keep them in.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna have to borrow some pokey something.
Yeah, right over there.
Here. I'll use your stylus.
Oh, that, yep.
See, now you still have this part. I've managed to lose those.
Oh, no, we keep track of that, don't we, Peter?
I tell you, I have a heck of a time. I'm going to go in here and pop this open just a little bit without getting the thread. Okay. So when your Aurifil thread comes in,
Let me help you with that.
yeah, don't lose that.
No.
Don't lose that. I borrowed it. Put it back right where I got it
I
from.
will.
I don't want to get in trouble. Okay. So when you take it out of the spool,
Out
of
of
the
the
plastic. First of all, this is orange. And Aurifil color codes their
Here's a green
things.
one.
There's a green one. That's going to be
Here's a red one.
40 weight.
Well, here's a red one.
There's a red one. This one's going to be probably a 30 weight.
This
Yeah.
is a red one too, but it is wool.
Wool.
Where's the
Okay.
wooden one?
The wooden ones.
The wooden ones right here. I got the wooden ones right here.
The wooden ones are 12s usually.
No,
these
well,
8?
this is 80, I think.
80. Okay. They're 80 or they're 12. So I've got some.
You have to read the label.
You have to read what it says. Let's see.
I brought some 12 weights, but here.
Bring some 12.
No,
Oh, here we go.
wait a
Here's
minute,
12
is
right
this
here.
12 weight? No, that's on there.
Oh no, those are 80s. Those are 80s. But they put the 80s and the 12s both on.
Yeah, here,
wood.
this is 12 weight, but mine's not on wood.
No, I got a wood one. Isn't this funny? All this thread and we can't find what we're looking for. I've got an Aurifil wood down here that's a 12. Here we go.
They used to put them on red, but they don't anymore, I guess.
That's an 80. You can tell by looking. I mean, the obvious difference between an 80 and a 12 is huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
You can tell. But anyway,
Yeah.
when you're talking about numbers of thread, so the bigger the number, and this is totally backwards, the bigger the number, the smaller the thread.
So confusing.
Because the exact opposite is the case with needles.
Exactly. So confusing.
So typically your sewing machine is set for a 50 to 60 weight thread because that's kind of what everybody uses. Now, that's fine as long as you're using a 50 to 60 weight thread, but if you start putting these other weights in there, you've got to adjust your tension.
That's right. And your needle maybe
And
sometimes.
your needle too. But
Where would you go to find that information out, Cappy?
on how to adjust your machine,
How to adjust your machine
Your
for
manual.
different... Exactly, people. Exactly.
Go to your
Your
manual.
manual will
what it's
tell you
for.
these things.
that's what they're for.
Love it.
Yeah, got to use your manuals, folks.
So we were talking about how to open this.
Okay, so Aurifil thread, I see it, I know it's there, I can maybe tug it out, but sometimes if I can't tug it out, it just pops off.
Yeah.
And then I can take it off. Now, there it is now, it's coming out.
Now you got to read your manual, but I want to show them this. Sometimes your manual says that they want, when your spool is on your machine, they want the thread to come over the top. And if that's so,
Put it on the
and
thread.
this is like this, with the thread coming over the top, you really would need to take it and go like this and use your spool button, cap, thank you, over on this end, okay? But I wanted you to know it was reversible.
Yep, you can make it go either way.
And that is what is so nice. And then when you're done and you want to put it back in your case, you just wind it back up, put that down like that, clamp that on, and that'll
She
hold it
stays.
in place.
You don't
See
have
that?
threads everywhere.
You don't have threads everywhere. So tell us what these numbers mean,
All right,
Cappy.
let me look at one and we'll talk about them. Let me get the same kind of thread. So yeah, and this is kind of another reason I really like Aurifil. They do a nice job of things. So they tell you the name of it. They tell you it's Mako right there. 50/20 on this one. So that one's probably, or 52. That means it's a 50 weight. It's a 2-ply. It tells me where it's made. Tells me it's 100% cotton. It tells me the meters is 1,300. The gram, like I'm going to care about the gram one.
I don't
but
know.
Some people do.
Well, it's according to what country you're from, I think.
Right. And then there's a number 22. That one is 2250. That's actually the color number. And then below that is 1 LV. That tells them which, this is kind of interesting, which dye lot of yarn, of thread that was. So we had some thread come in one time from Aurifil that broke. It was just bad thread. I don't know what was wrong with it, but it didn't work. Repeatedly,
They got a bad batch of base thread.
Yeah, something was wrong with the thread, and so it was this purple color, and everybody bought it. Didn't do well. So I could call Aurifil and say, give them that number, and they replaced all that thread for us because they could look at the dye lot and go, oh yeah, that was a bad lot. We knew we had trouble with it. So that's what all those numbers mean. And like I say, they're color coded too.
Okay, now, so this one has different numbers. Let's look at this.
Oh, you're going to test me. No, it doesn't have the 40 weight on there, does it?
Well, because it's not 40 weight. Oh, yeah, here it is. 40,
It's 40.
It's 40 weight.
Oh, there it is, 42. Yeah.
40,
so it has the same.
40 weight, 2 ply.
Right. And again.
But why is it on green if it's 40
Well,
weight?
it's green because this is 50 weight.
This is 50 weight, yeah.
This is 40.
Okay.
So 50, 40.
That's the only difference between these two threads, right?
Yeah, and 10, you think
100% cotton.
100% cotton.
100%. So the only difference between these two threads is that, well, besides one is on an orange spool and one is on a green spool, and they're two different colors, is the weight.
Yeah,
They're the same exact thread except for the weight.
And the weight makes a difference.
And the weight
I think
Was
I
this
like
one yours or mine?
I think that's yours.
Okay.
I think you would be surprised at the difference it makes in your machine and your needle size if you're not careful to get the right combination. So if my thread's breaking a lot when I'm sewing, and say I'm using a 40 weight thread and I have a size 9 needle, that ain't gonna work.
No.
I'd be lucky if I even got it threaded,
Right.
because a 9 needle is very, very tiny. If I'm gonna use a 9 needle, I could even run 80 weight thread through my machine if I wanted to. And I have. I've done things where I used an 80 weight thread because it was very fine sewing, it was very thin rayon, it was very lightweight. I didn't want a heavy thread in there, I wanted something light.
Right.
So you use different threads for different fabrics. I think garment people know that, but quilters don't.
I think you're right. Because most of us use an 80-12 needle,
Yeah,
a 50 weight thread,
yep,
and that's it.
that's your go-to.
And that's what your sewing machine's set up for, and
And
you don't have
it
any
works.
trouble, and it's
And it works.
awesome, and that's the way you do it.
And then they pull out this metallic thread and it's like,
ah!
yeah, what do you do? Because it's totally different.
Okay.
So realize there's a whole relationship between the thread weight and the needle and what you're sewing on.
Now, speaking of thread weight, I love me a button weight.
Oh.
You know, this is, I don't even know, this is Coates & Clark, but it's a button. It's 100% polyester, but I use this when I make pincushions or anytime I want to cinch a button in the middle of something and I want to really pull it tight.
Down. Right.
That I'm going to use, I cannot even break this with my fingers.
Yeah, see.
This is a strong thread.
And they make a wax coated thread like that too that's a button
Yes,
thread that's like,
and it's really nice
you are not going to get away with it going anywhere. See, like this
Yeah.
is, I think they call this spaghetti. This is a 12 weight.
Okay, this doesn't give you the weight, but it says right on the spool, heavy.
Heavy.
Heavy, isn't that funny?
Now this is a 12 weight.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
And
I've got some 12
love
weights
this.
too.
They and the Wonderful company calls it spaghetti. Of course, I've got it in like a gazillion colors.
Sulky makes a nice 12 weight in multiple colors.
But this, like she says,
Love my
if you're
Sulky.
sewing buttons on a coat or sewing buttons on a garment, man, this is the way to go. Because it only takes 3 or 4 threads. Want you're
Right.
done. You don't have to go 40 gazillion times. I could run this through my sewing machine if I wanted to. Right needle, right tension, right, you know.
Oh, where'd you get all these cute little things?
Well, you
I
know-
bet she just got these at, like when she went to Quilt Market.
I did.
How
I bought
cute
these at
they
Market.
are.
And then, of course, this is Cosmo, which is another really nice thread.
Got me some Cosmo right here. And on this Cosmo, it's 42. So what does that mean? 40-2.
40 is 2 ply. It's 42 ply. 40
weight,
2
2
ply.
ply. But I want to ask you about this. It says extra long staple. Tell
Yeah.
us what that means.
So staple is a term that's used with thread, and it's about, and this is so funny.
is it a little tiny
It's
thread
a little
stapler?
Tiny stapler. No.
No. Okay.
Staple is a measure. So see, I have my little.
Okay,
got my
I want to
picture.
hear about
Here
it.
we
I
go.
want to hear all about it.
Here's staple thread length, and so Egyptian cotton, which is like the primo cotton to get. And Egyptian cotton is like Havana cigars. It's the type of it's the type of seed that they grow it from. It doesn't all come from Egypt. There's only like 1% of the cotton in the world comes from Egypt. All the cotton comes from other places. But short staple thread length is 1.125%. That's just tiny. Long is 1.125 to 1.25, and extra long is 1.25 to 2 inches. So this little space in here, this little red to green spot right here, that's all the difference we're talking about. But when they make cotton fibers, what they do is they lay them down on top of each other like this, basically. They kind of staircase them like tiles. And the longer those little fibers are, then the less fluff you have and the more smooth the thread is.
And the stronger.
So you want as long as you can get. For instance, a silk thread, when they take a silk thread out, it is one long, like 3,000 long.
It comes from a bug.
Comes from their cocoon.
This is 100% fine silk made in Japan thread. And then I turn it around here, and it tells me that it's the YLI Corporation in Rock Hill, South Carolina. That doesn't mean anything to me. It's color 235. It's 200 meters. It doesn't tell me anything about the weight.
Well, silk thread's typically very fine. 80 to 100. 80 to 100 at least. And it is
that you can barely see it.
You can barely see it, but it is stronger.
Have you ever done your binding by hand with silk?
No.
It's usually not cheap.
No.
But
and it's very slick.
And it's one fiber that goes for a long
You know what a lot of
long
people
time.
use this for is, you would know this, English paper piecing.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's so fine and it is so strong that your stitches don't show, but it really holds the little pieces together.
But it's
very expensive, but
you gotta really like thread.
it's delicious. It's delicious is all I got to say about that.
Pretty.
So I guess the point is to read the end of the label so you can find out really what you're getting.
Yeah, absolutely. And buy what you can afford. But yeah, and match the fiber and the needle to the thread. Don't be throwing weird stuff together. Look at it, realize it matters. When your machine's being cranky and it's breaking thread all the time, make sure you've got it threaded right. Make sure you're using the right size needle. Make sure you're using the right thread for the project.
Let me ask you about these. These are pre-wound bobbins that we sell.
I know, and so here's how these work. These are on paper. Okay, so these are okay. They make another kind that are glued. Have you seen the glued ones?
I have.
What do you think of them?
No, I don't use any pre-wound bobbins. I believe that my sewing machine...
I'm so glad you're saying that, because if you were going to go another direction,
I believe my sewing machine, and I don't know how true this is, but I have found that my sewing machine, I don't even like those little machines that wind your bobbins for you, because winders. I think my machine winds my bobbin to the tension that is set in the factory settings.
I agree.
And so why would I buy a pre-wound bobbin when it has no idea what kind of sewing machine I'm going to sew on?
Right.
And it doesn't know what weight I'm going to sew with. And so I'm kind of stuck. I just have these because somebody gave them to me. I don't use them. I just don't use them. Now, I could use them for handwork because awesome to put your some little bit of thread on a bobbin to travel with for handwork. I love that idea.
They are great.
That's why I have these.
Right. Those are awesome.
These are awesome. They're 100% cotton, and I use these all the time because, you've just got so many choices in colors. But
it's easier than going and getting a whole spool of thread. No, I absolutely agree. I'm not in favor of pre-filled bobbins. They make some that are kind of... They don't even have papers on. They're just like glued together with resin.
Right.
And as you use them, the bobbin goes away. Well, the problem is part of what makes the tension work with your bobbin is the resistance that the bobbin itself gives you.
Correct.
The bobbin that holds the thread. When that bobbin's gone, there's no resistance.
Right.
So you don't get good tension.
No.
So... Yeah, I know long arm people use them.
I know. Well,
some of the long arm people love them, but we're talking
that might be a whole different ball game.
Whole nother thing. Yeah.
And I know we sell them for domestic machines, and some people just love them and have the best luck with them in the whole world.
Right.
Not me.
Not me. And embroidery machines, a lot of times, like if they're using decorative embroidery thread on the top and they just need white bobbin fill on the bottom,
that's how
it works for that.
Oh, okay.
Now I do know that we have we sell Janome brand machines. And we do sell the Janome pre-wound bobbins.
Yes, and those are typically for embroidery machines when they're using a color on the top and they just need a white background to support that colored thread on top.
Now,
Now-
here's something I have that's called Bobbin thread.
Bobbin, again, we're back to embroidery, and that's where they have a lighter
Let me
weight
see that.
thread. It's usually an 80 weight or a thinner weight thread
Right.
because you're going to use something heavier on top, and they don't want the resistance.
And you got to deal with your tension because
Yes.
that's going to be a tension issue if you've got a lighter weight thread in your bobbin and a heavier weight, or
Right.
vice versa.
Absolutely.
Or vice versa.
Yeah, you got to learn
Yeah.
how to set your tension. So here's the thing, home ec class.
Yeah.
Don't touch the tension.
Right.
Whatever you do, don't
Yeah,
touch it. You
that's
know why
what
the
you
home
were-
ec teacher said that?
Because she didn't want to mess with it.
She had 30 kids in the room who were going to go, wah.
Yeah, she didn't want to mess with it.
Well, and you can't do that. But your home machine, there's a dial there for a reason. Use it.
Exactly.
Don't be afraid of it. If your tension's a
Exactly.
little wonky, play with it.
Exactly.
I've done a tension class, and I just messed the machines up totally, and then we put them back, and people are amazed. You can actually turn that dial, and the home ec teacher doesn't come out of the grave and go, you shouldn't have done that.
Right.
I mean, it's okay. There is, I think Glide thread makes the color of the thread and bobbins pre-filled that match.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't hesitate to use those.
Okay. Well, speaking of bobbins, once you get your bobbin filled, let me go over to my phone machine.
Get your
here.
bobbin. Oh yeah, how you gonna hold them together?
Yeah, you got your. Where'd my thread go? Oh, here it is. Let me get this out of here.
Get that bobbin out of there. Let's take a look at it. Yeah, there's all different
So
kinds
I'm
of
gonna
bobbins.
switch threads. I gotta sew with some white thread or black thread, and so my this color is my ribbon runs through it color, and of course I can go like this, and wind that around and close that in, and that'll hold my this thread.
Right.
But now here I've got this, and I kind of want them to stay together.
So I know what she's going to show, but I'm going to show you what I have. I have these boxes, which are great because I can just put my bobbins right with my thread, which I like.
Yeah, that's nice.
That's kind of handy.
Yeah.
Hold on.
So if you're in the Aurifil or Up Club, or you have these
But
Aurifil,
if you want to go to a retreat and you don't want to take that whole thing,
I just take the colors I'm going to use.
why don't you get you one of these?
Yep, I
What's
love
that,
those.
Dawn?
Yeah, this
Those
is a
are the
little
bobbin
clip,
pins.
little bobbin pin. It looks like a bobby pin, but it's called a bobbin pin. And look at that. It keeps it with the color of thread. Okay, and then we have these little things that go in around the bobbins to keep the thread from unraveling. Now these are too big, but you can get these for your spools that don't
You
clasp.
could decorate your Christmas tree with
You
these.
certainly could.
You know,
Nancy.
Okay, and I'll give you a cheap, easy way to keep the bobbin thread because we got this handy way to hold this.
Right.
You know, I saw those at the register and I had no idea what they were
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
They come in colors.
You can take that down and put it in
You
there.
can, but I'll know. There's another trick. You can
Okay.
go to like most supply places will have tubing, like oxygen tubing.
Right.
And
I've
take
seen
that oxygen tubing, cut it into 1/4-inch pieces, slice it, and then you can wrap that around your bobbin.
I have
and it
seen
holds
people
it.
do that too.
It is the coolest thing, and I
Yeah.
haven't done it, but I keep thinking I will.
Yeah.
I should, because I think it would be a great way. Because this is great, but then the bobbin thread still,
Right,
unless you
still
take it
willy
down.
nilly all over.
But
the
what would you do,
place.
Dawn?
Well, I have little things at home that are like this that
Right.
do the bobbin. They're called little bobbin clips. I don't know what
And
they
little
are.
hair ties, hair twist ties. The
Hair
little-
twist
little-
ties. I've done
little
that
bitty
before
ones
too.
will do it.
So I
too.
saw those at the register and I couldn't figure out what they
Yeah,
were for.
well, so let's say for instance, this doesn't have one of those things that holds the thread. So I could get one of these. Now this is my very own package, so I'm going to open it up. Look, I've never used it.
It's your very own package, but yeah, but we buy gadgets.
It was given it to somebody gave it to me, some Moda probably gave it to me, whatever. But see, and it fits almost any spool, and you put that around where the end of your thread is, and it keeps your thread from undoing.
Which when you get a
And
get
it's
them in
any
tubs,
any size. Now look at that. Well, that one has one of those clips. This one doesn't. So, see, any size. It works for any size.
Yeah, because there's nothing worse than opening a thread box and having thread
And it's thread
tangles.
everywhere.
And it does. It makes a hot mess. Makes a hot mess.
So even look at this. Even this one.
Perfect size. Yeah. It even
See.
works on that little bitty one. That's like all 3 sizes you'd have.
So see,
Very cool.
these are really cool. They're called peels. And I really think that it's a good deal if you're going to travel. You know,
Absolutely.
if you're going to throw a bunch of these in a bag or whatever, and they don't have that clip or a way to hold it. Now, here's a different style that we carry. I've never used this style. I always have used, where did that other one go? Oh, here.
Right there.
I've always used this style, and there's a secondary style too. But anyway, here's some other ones. And these, you thread the thread through, and then you clap it down, and it holds the thread.
I know you brought just a small portion, and I brought just a small portion. And these little gadgets can get expensive, but boy, great stocking stuffers. Have the family get them for you for Christmas.
Yeah, definitely.
Because, we're talking $5 for a package of these, 10 of them. They get expensive, but boy, they're worth it because then you don't have the thread mess.
Yeah, I don't know how much those little bobby pins are, but they're very inexpensive.
Oh, those
they're
are
up
cheap.
at the register.
Yeah, those are like 50 cents.
Yeah,
a piece
they're
or
up at the
something.
register.
The other thing, and then I want to talk about is thread color when choosing, because you have had this with ribbon runs through it. Everybody's like, "What color thread are you using? What color thread are you using? What color thread are you using?" Okay, what is your go-to thread color?
White, black, gray, and an ecru-y.
Right.
Middle value, all middle value. I mean, white's light and black's dark.
Right.
And then I've got middle value gray and middle value ecru. My gray is for my cools. No, my gray is for my warm. Nope, I was right the first time. My gray is for my cools, and my beige is for my warms.
Yeah. So that's what I've learned. I mean, I was all obsessed about I got to have every color in the rainbow, and
that is if you're top stitching. Or if you're doing decorative things and you want some contrast or whatever, that is super awesome important, I would say. But I got to have all the colors, too.
Well, I like to have all the colors, too, but I have become a grayish piecer.
Oh, yeah, when you're piecing.
I'm grayish.
When you're piecing.
Grayish.
Now, we're going to start this. We're going to start this new quilt. It's called Emma.
Yeah, now what color are you going to use on that?
I'm going to use, it's called Aurifil 1158 Medium Gray. See, again, gray.
Yeah, gray.
It's got a real bluish green tint to it, and it's the colors of the, it'll go with all these. And these are the fabrics for Emma. Get on our website and look this up. It's delicious.
It's a beautiful
We're going to start this in the next month or so, whenever the fabric gets here. But, yeah. That you want to, you don't have to be so matchy when you're piecing.
No. And I'm a matchy girl.
When you're top stitching or putting in a zipper, you're top stitching that zipper in, that's when the color becomes important.
Absolutely.
Don't you think?
Absolutely. And when you're top stitching, you want to lengthen your stitch length too, because that's what makes it more attractive.
Right.
So there's all these little tricks with thread that's what makes it really holds your project together.
Right.
It holds your project together, and it's what makes it pop. So use good thread, the best you can afford.
Yep.
Use the right thread for the project.
Yep.
Know that there's lots of choices, and if you're confused, come in. We'll be happy to help you pick the right one.
Definitely.
But
let's talk about how you would store them, because I've got a menagerie here. Because I just pick and choose. Yeah, I just picked and chose from. But she does have some organization going here. She's got all of her Robinson Anton. What is this again?
This is all rayons.
Rayons.
And polys. All
together. Then she's got all of her 80 weight. Is this all cotton?
It is all cotton.
80 weight all cottons. And then, that's how I would store mine. I would put all the cottons together. And then if you have a bunch that are different weights, store all the weights together.
Now, these just sit on the shelf and look
well,
pretty.
but yeah. That's a no-brainer.
You got to have some of those that are just...
Oh, look, here's one of those stockings I was telling you about. Yeah. Because look at this thread. It just flops.
Yeah,
it's just...
That's a hot mess.
And so you put one of these little socks. I don't know what they're really called.
It's a bra.
Uh-huh. It's a little sock
thread
that goes
bra.
over there.
Thread. I think it is a thread bra.
And so anyway, it just goes
Holds
in
it all in
there.
place.
Holds it all in place.
Holds it all in place.
So,
but I would suggest that you tend to gather your threads like threads to like threads.
It makes it easier in the process.
It does.
And it also makes it so that I recognize, oh, wait a minute, I'm using this one for that, and I'm using this one for this. But yeah, I got a little dawn on me when it comes to this because I've got like all my Aurifils in these boxes, all the 40 weight are together. Oh, here we go. Here we go. See, I knew I had 12. So here's Aurifil's 12 weight.
This is floss.
It is floss.
It's not
It's
12
8.
weight.
Is it 8 probably or 5?
This is floss, honey. This
It is.
ply. This is like 6-ply floss.
Right.
This is
But
not thread.
look how they put it on a spool.
I know, it's pretty neat, isn't it?
And I think,
But
and it's on the same wood spool, and I think that's
as
confusing.
it is confusing as the 8 weight, but people can
But
tell
look
the
at it.
difference.
Look at the difference. It's like night and day.
See, these are on the wooden too, but they're dark wood, and yours is light wood. See that?
But
How
those
that-
are 80s.
This is 80, and that's floss.
Right.
Uh,
But can you see somebody
but
walking in
here's-
and trying to think they're going to sew with
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
I just want them to see the difference.
here's 12 weight. It's on a red spool for some reason, but there's some 12 weight right there, Aurifil.
Yeah, but
Okay.
this is like embroidery floss, so this is probably.
And
what?
here's some
Pearl
12
cotton.
weight.
Is this like pearl cotton?
6-strand embroidery floss.
No, honey, it's 6 strands
For
of
cross
embroidery
stitch.
floss.
Cross embroidery
Mhm.
floss.
You know what you would buy on a skein, like
Yep.
from DMC? It's the same stuff, only on
See,
a
you
spool.
can go home and you can do some cross stitch with these
I
seahorses
know, that's my idea.
and seashells.
I never do
You
that.
totally need to do this.
I know, that's why it's in my box.
You know what?
I bought that whole
You
set.
might find somebody who loves you and then have them do it for
Yeah,
you.
my daughter usually does them for me. But see, look, but somebody walks back to our embroidery department and would see these and go, "Oh, look, there's thread for my sewing machine."
Yeah, yeah.
No,
So confusing.
look at
That looks like rope.
It does look like rope.
It's
compared to
6
what we're going
ply.
to.
So you would undo these.
There's 6 threads.
Could you
6
do
threads.
punch needle with that, Dawn?
You certainly could. Three plies if you want to do 3. If you want to do all 6, you could. If you just wanted to do 2, it's just like floss. I don't know how many times I have to say it. It's floss.
Floss,
is it?
floss. It's not
Floss.
thread, it's floss.
Floss for
but-
your teeth?
It's still on a spool like the rest of
And
this.
there's some 80 weight.
Yeah, so
thread.
look at the difference. 80
Floss.
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 But the rule still applies. Floss numbers correspond to thread numbers in the same way, I think, in the sense that they're big. Big. Okay. What have we not talked about?
I don't know. I've got beading thread here.
Oh, okay. Talk about beading thread.
I don't know anything about beading thread except for you use it to bead with. It's
It's
flat.
like peyote. Yeah, it is flat.
It's flat. It comes on these spools. It's shiny.
And it's strong. It's like
and
dental
it's strong.
floss.
It's not a natural fiber.
Mm-mm,
It's a
mm-mm.
man-made
Nylon?
fiber.
I think it
And,
probably is nylon.
Yeah, nylon or polyester or something. I think it's nylon myself. It does come in different weights also. But I only use this for my, that's why it says right there.
See, I've got
beading.
clear when I do stuff, but I'm not.
So the point, the reason I brought this is because I wanted you to get the idea that you stored like threads with like threads.
Absolutely.
Okay? Anything else you want to say about thread?
Gosh, I don't know.
I think have we
I'm worn
exhausted
out.
it?
We've exhausted it. We've worn it out.
If you have any additional comments on thread, make sure that you put it in the comments. If you like a brand of thread that we haven't mentioned and we don't know anything about,
Talk about it.
by golly, let us know about it.
about
We
it. Talk
need to
about
know. I do love this new Cosmos thread.
Yeah.
It's kind of expensive because it comes from Europe or Japan. Okay,
It's Japanese.
Japan.
It's lysine thread.
Uh-huh. Moda sent me a big giant cone of white and I've been using it. It's
for
delicious.
hand?
No, it's 40 weight for piecing.
Oh, for piecing.
It's yummy, delicious.
Well,
I just love it. I love it. But, you know, am I going to buy it? No, probably not.
yeah. It's
This
buy
is
what
it.
you can
This
afford.
is a Cosmo. Big cone.
That is nice.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Good color
Yeah,
too.
it's not fuzzy. It's very nice.
All right.
So-
well, there you go. That's everything you didn't want to know and wanted to know about thread.
Should we tie it up?
Let's tie it up.
Alrighty, see you next
We've strung
time.
them along for quite a
strung 'em
while.
along.
Wow, we strung them along. Oh, that's
gosh. Happy
the three
stitching.
of us together.
Yeah, it's
Bye.
bad.